Hello, welcome back to my fave fanfics. Here, I post, well, my favorite fanfictions, if that wasn't obvious. I do hope you'll enjoy them as much as I do. Please like and subscribe for more content. Without further ado, let's get started.
Welcome, my dear faves, to the first part of What If Ichigo and His Family Transported to the World of My Hero Academia. Credit goes to DuchessEglantine. Chapter 1. Ichigo woke up, groggy and grumpy, to the sound of fearful screams and the screeches of hollows outside. He rolled himself out of bed, stood on shaky legs, and made his way out of the house. On the streets was complete chaos. Hollows ran or flew, attacking civilians, and the city was on fire. Emergency personnel were valiantly fighting them off and trying to put out the fires. There were also a whole slew of what looked like superheroes running around while fighting the hollows. A woman screamed as a flying hollow snatched her up, and Ichigo shot it down with a lazy bala, and caught her with a slow shunpo midair. They tapped down on the ground and the woman thanked him profusely before running off. Ichigo walked down the street and turned the corner, holding his hand over his mouth as he yawned. There was a man on fire, but on purpose. He was wearing a super suit, and there was a teenager with two-toned hair standing on the side of the street pulling out his phone. Kurosaki? The teen mumbled, and Ichigo was behind him in a heartbeat looking over his shoulder. There was a GPS pin, too actually. And Midoriya? The teen seemed baffled. Ichigo snatched the phone out of the teen's hands. Hey! Fire Dude whipped his head around and started stalking towards them with a fierce scowl. Ichigo dodged each of the teen's attempts to reclaim his phone while Endeavor approached. Responding to the pin notification from Kurosaki Kazui, Ichigo typed out a response. This is your father. If you're doing what I think you're grounded when we get home. Be right there. Ichigo hit send and handed the phone back to the dual-haired kid after memorizing the pin drop and sending out reishi tendrils to find his son's signature. Thanks, Ichigo said before shooting off in a high-speed movement technique towards his son, leaping over buildings on his way. Todoroki Shoto fumbled his phone as his hair and clothes blew to the side with the strength of the wind caused by the technique. He looked at his phone screen with surprise. Who was that Shoto? Endeavor asked him. Kurosaki's father, Shoto said, baffled momentarily, a friend from school. Two of my classmates dropped a GPS pin from the same location. I think they're in trouble. Shoto showed his father the phone. Endeavor nodded and turned his attention back to the crisis at hand, shouting orders. Is he a hero? Endeavor asked Shoto, who shook his head in the negative. No, he's a coma patient, Shoto said solemnly. Endeavor quirked an incredulous brow, but a scream stole away his attention and he shot off to battle the Nomu responsible. The entire 1A class not present in Hosu were left scratching their heads at the ominous, I am your father, text Todoroki sent in response to Kurosaki's class-wide GPS pin drop message. Some frowning in distaste as it was well known that Kurosaki's father had been in a coma for the past 8 years. Others baffled and worried that Midoriya would send the same GPS drop from Hosu City. Ichigo arrived at an alley with a dangerous scene playing out. There was a teenage boy in a mech suit bleeding on the ground. A guy dressed like a Native American slumped over against an alley wall. A green-haired boy was on the ground screaming for a threatening man with a red scarf and lots of blades who was laughing menacingly to stop. all while Kazui ran at the man with his Zanpakuto drawn in a familiar stance. Ichigo shot forward with a boom of sonido, causing everyone to stop and look at where he had been, and grabbed the red scarf man by the chest to slam him down onto the alley floor. Gak. Spit flew out of the hero killer's mouth with the impact, and he tried to stab Ichigo with wide frenzied eyes. Ichigo grabbed the knife by the blade and crushed it with a blood-reinforced hand, his veins glowing a faint blue in his palm. The hero killer's eyes widened with a ting of fear. He lifted the hero killer by the front of his shirt and slapped him hard enough for the air to be displaced from the force of it and a boom to echo in the alley. "You think it's funny?" Ichigo kneed him in the gut. The hero killer doubled over with the force of it, blood spewing from his mouth. "Real big man. Going around stabbing kids in alleys?" Ichigo snarled, grabbed the back of the man's shirt to haul him upwards and backhanded him into the wall. Jahook. The hero killer spat out a tooth, his face mottled in bruises with a black eye forming. The hero killer threw several knives at Ichigo, and Ichigo smacked them casually into the ground hard enough to embed them into the concrete with the back of his hand. Ichigo pointed 2 fingers at the hero killer and intoned, "Sigh," viciously, and the hero killer's arms snapped backward sharply. The hero killer was forced to his knees and his bruised face slammed into the ground as the spell took hold. The hero killer coughed up blood in the way chain smokers hacked up a lung. Loudly, with a rattling echo in his chest. Ichigo turned to rush towards the mech suit kid and held a glowing blue hand over his injury. "Dad?" Kazui whispered as he stood staring in disbelief at his father. Midoriya stood up on shaky legs and stared at Ichigo with awe. Ichigo snapped at them with the hand he wasn't using to heal Iida, pointing towards Native. "Bring him over here, and make sure he doesn't bleed out," Ichigo said briskly. Midoriya and Kazui shared a look and then ran over to Native, hefting him up carefully and bringing him to sit next to Iida while keeping pressure on his wound. Ichigo placed a glowing blue hand over Native as well. "Yo oh you. FF tilde. The hero killer tried to say with a swollen face from his position on the ground. An intimidating amount of pressure filled the air. It was like the sky was falling, and Midoriya and Kazui fell to their hands and knees. Ichigo let up the pressure with a gentle apology. The hero killer lay unconscious and limp in his contorted position. Gran Torino rounded the corner with a panicked huff, stopping at the mouth of the alley. Everyone turned to look at him, Iida and Native twisting their necks to look from their positions on the ground. Midoriya grimaced, and a flying foot landed on his face. "You idiot!" Gran Torino said grumpily with a fierce scowl, "I told you to stay put." The green-haired boy started mumbling out apologies and excuses. The old man folded his arms over his chest with a skeptically up-ticked eyebrow as he listened. The glow left Ichigo's palms and he stood up from his crouched position. Native stood up as well and gave Ichigo a serious nod. "Thank you," Native said sincerely. "No thanks necessary," Ichigo said while turning to whip his arm out and point at Kazui. "You!" Ichigo bellowed, stopping Iida from giving his own thanks with a surprised flinch. Kazui stared at Ichigo wide-eyed, grounded. Quote, "But Dad!" Kazui wailed. Grounded. A group of heroes rounded the corner. Chapter 2. Chapter text. A group of heroes rounded the corner. "Is this one yours?" Ichigo asked Native while pointing at Iida. No," Native said, "I don't know where he came from." "Idaten maybe?" Quote. The group of heroes approached them at a sedate pace from the mouth of the alley, their footsteps a clatter of noise in the dark. "Oh, I'm interning with Manuel," Iida said awkwardly as he shuffled his feet. "I'm interning with Manuel too," Kazui piped in. "Great, where's he?" Ichigo asked. "I saw Manuel putting out fires from the Nomu attack," Midoriya offered, thrusting his arm up in the air. Gran Torino tugged his arm down. "You're not in the classroom, idiot," the old man grumped. "Endeavor told us there was a request for help here," one of the heroes said awkwardly as they approached the group. Native went over to talk to them. "Thanks kid," Ichigo said with a nod. "Yes sir." Midoriya saluted. Gran Torino rubbed the bridge of his nose with a sigh. Iida stood up and flexed his arm, marveling at it. "The hero killer?" A female hero asked loudly, shocked by Native's news. "What?" another man asked. "I'll get the police on the line," another said. "It's like Recovery Girl's quirk," Iida thought. "You good here?" Ichigo asked Gran Torino and Native. "Yeah, we'll take care of things here. The police should get here shortly," Native said. Gran Torino nodded along with crossed arms. "I'll get this one to his designated adult," Ichigo said as he motioned to Iida. "Hey, before you go, what's your name?" Gran Torino asked. "Ah, Kurosaki Ichigo, I'm this one's," he put his hand on Kazui's head, ruffling his hair. "Father." "Dad." Kazui grumbled as he swatted Ichigo's hand away and smoothed down his hair with a light blush dusting his cheeks. Gran Torino nodded seriously. "You're Midoriya's classmate?" Gran Torino asked, turning to Kazui. "Yes sir," Kazui answered. Gran Torino said, turning back to Ichigo, "And you live in the area I presume?" He motioned towards Ichigo's black tank and white and pink strawberry pajama bottoms, along with his bare feet. Ichigo looked down and coughed into his fist with a light blush. "Ah, yeah." Gran Torino nodded at the answer. "Alright kids, let's get you back," Ichigo said as he prepped a reishi platform under his feet. But, Iida thought as he looked over at the hero killer, two quirks. Single quote. "Eye on the platform," Kurosaki-san said as he grabbed Iida and Kazui. Iida hadn't been paying attention. "Wha?" Iida said before they were shooting up into the air. "Hooah." He clutched Ichigo's chest firmly until they stopped. The trio stood suspended in the air above the city, and an explosion went off in the distance where there was screaming and the sound of heavy collisions. "Oh, look," Ichigo said cheerfully, "fire." He then shot off towards it in a dizzyingly fast shunpo, one boy secured in each arm. They arrived on the street below beside a broken fire hydrant where Manuel was attempting to put out the fires with his quirk. Endeavor was in the street intersection squaring off against a black-skinned Nomu with hulking muscles. Iida pushed away from Ichigo easily and fell to his knees, retching. "Iida, are you okay?" Kazui asked as he let go of his father to check on his friend. Iida gave him a thumbs up as he collected his composure. "Fine, just dizzy," Iida huffed, getting back up with a hand to his stomach. "Iida, Kurosaki. There you are," Manuel said. Ichigo zeroed in on him immediately. "This is yours," Ichigo said, pointing to Iida with his thumb. Yes," Manuel said, left-footed. "Great," Ichigo said, pointing his thumb to Kazui, "watch this," and shot off towards a burning apartment building with a flicker of bringer light. He came out with 5 kids split unevenly under his arms, dropped them off with the evacuation team, and popped back into the building. 5 minutes passed in which Ichigo popped in and out of the building, delivering a multitude of people in their pajamas to emergency personnel as needed in bursts of bringer light. Manuel grinned with open relief as things finally started to turn around from the mad chaos of earlier, and the flames puttered out as water coated them alongside ice. "I met your dad," Endeavor's son said to Kurosaki from behind Manuel. "I thought he was in a coma?" Manuel perked up at the information and turned his head to eavesdrop. "He woke up?" Kazui said as they both helped move some rubble out of the road for emergency vehicles. "Whose quirk is this?" one of the heroes questioned while pointing at Stain's strange position on the stretcher. Kazui smacked Ichigo's leg when he didn't notice while he was talking to Endeavor. "Dad," Kazui said, getting his attention. "Huh?" Ichigo stopped mid-sentence to look at Kazui, who nodded towards Stain. "Oh, right." Ichigo flicked his wrist towards Stain, whose arms fell forward limply. The paramedics adjusted Stain on the stretcher with a wave back towards Ichigo as the cops secured Stain to ensure safe transport to a villain hospital. "Thanks," one of them shouted. Breaking news. Hero killer stopped by Coma-man. During the tragic events surrounding Hosu last night, the father of a UA student, doing an internship in Hosu City, woke from an 8-year coma to defeat the hero killer. The hero killer was in the midst of attacking 3 UA students, one of which was his son, and the pro-hero native. Police have refused to comment on the currently active investigation. However, the aftermath of the battle was caught on camera, see below. A video was attached in the middle of the article. All it showed was the aftermath of the Hosu incident as a whole, leading to many disappointed people who were looking to view an interesting villain fight. Stain was pictured being secured for transport with a bruised face. Nothing new or interesting there. However, the picture of a barefoot man in strawberry print pajama bottoms and a black tank top would soon become an internet sensation. Coma-man, the sleeping hero, defeats hero killer Stain in brutal beatdown. Hero killer Stain finally brought to justice by Coma-man. Father comes out of 8-year coma to save son from hero killer. Coma-man not actually a hero? The power of a concerned parent. Hero killer foiled by fatherly love. Many articles came out immediately following the Hosu incident that detailed the takedown of the hero killer by a man who came out of an 8-year coma to do it. Coma-man had become a media sensation overnight. Few articles were written about the devastation caused by the League of Villains, with a brief description of the incident and a picture of Shigaraki and Kurogiri on a rooftop circulated for a few days. Shigaraki grit his teeth as he shook with fury. "I hate him." Fatherly love, Shigaraki spit out like the words were a curse. "Disgusting. Don't they see that the League of Villains is more important than that no-name hero? We caused the most damage." He shouted as he threw his phone in a fit of rage and stomped off to go vent his frustration. Kurogiri stayed wisely silent as he wiped down a glass at the bar. Kurogiri's phone pinged, and he picked it up, swiping the screen to view a news notification. Coma-man. Stronger than All Might? Kurogiri laughed softly at the trash news article, chuckling at the bad puns as the gif of a man in strawberry print pajama pants and pink bunny slippers zipped to and fro in what was clearly a doctored and sped up gif. The bunny slippers didn't even look like they were in the correct lighting. A rookie mistake. The heavily edited picture of Coma-man flexed his muscles, which ballooned up cartoonishly as an All Might smile was superimposed upon his face. Shigaraki stormed back into the room and Kurogiri swiftly hid the device. He's not even a mini-boss. He's just some noob in starter clothes. Shigaraki ranted as he screeched and ripped at his hair. Chapter 3. Chapter text. That morning Ichigo stood in front of his closet door. The entire thing was filled to the brim with strawberry print pajamas. Ichigo scowled in despair as he pulled out a pink silk long-sleeved set. He put it on with a sigh and walked down into the kitchen. Kazui was sitting on a bar stool with bags under his eyes. "Your mom does the clothes shopping, doesn't she?" Ichigo asked Kazui while he made breakfast. "Yeah, why?" Kazui asked. "No reason," Ichigo mumbled as he plated their omelets. Ichigo set a cup of coffee down in front of his son. "Mom doesn't let me drink coffee." "I won't tell her," Ichigo said with a grin. Kazui stared at him like Ichigo had hung the moon and drunk his coffee like a desperate man finding water in the desert. There was knocking at the door and Kazui went to go answer it. The hero Midoriya had been interning under and a large man with a dog head in a black suit with a Dalmatian tie were standing on the doorstep. "Is Mr. Kurosaki in?" "Woof," the dog-headed man asked. Kazui nodded. "That's me," he said softly. "Not you kid, your father," Gran Torino said. Kazui perked up. "Dad. It's for you." Kazui hollered into the house. "Coming." Ichigo hollered back from the kitchen, walking into the foyer in pink silk button-down strawberry print pajamas with a towel over his shoulder. "Can I help you?" Quote. "I'm Chief Suragame of the Hosu police," the dog-headed man said. "I have some questions regarding the hero killer, Woof." "Who?" Ichigo asked, genuinely baffled. Chief Suragame hesitated. "The guy whose ass you kicked last night," Gran Torino supplied helpfully. Midoriya wouldn't stop going on about it. Ichigo snapped his fingers. "Oh, the stabby guy," Ichigo said as he motioned them to come in. "Thank you, Woof," Chief Suragame said with nod as they entered. "Living room is through there," Ichigo pointed. "Kazui, go to your room until we're done." "But you do not have permission to be questioned by police. Go to your room," Ichigo said firmly. Kazui deflated and nodded. "Yes sir." Kazui left for his room, leaving the door cracked open. Ichigo snorted with a shake of his head. The three men made their way to the living room and sat amongst the large sectional there. Ichigo offered them refreshments which they politely refused. "We need to discuss your illegal quirk usage, Mr. Kurosaki," Chief Suragame said as he pulled out a pad and pen. "Ah," Ichigo said with a nod. "Kazui was telling me about that last night." Detective Suragame nodded. "Midoriya told me that you were in a coma until recently," Gran Torino said as he sat with his arms crossed. "That's right, I woke up last night," Ichigo replied. "It's been around 8 years now, I've missed a lot." "My condolences," Chief Suragame said. "That doesn't excuse the incident however, Woof." "I understand." Ichigo nodded. That being said, Chief Suragame flipped a page of his notebook. "I would like to personally thank you for apprehending the villain. Could you tell me the story from your side for our investigation?" Quote. "Yeah, I woke up to the city on fire, found out my son was in trouble, and used a high-speed movement technique to make it to him." Gran Torino closed his eyes and looked to be napping as he listened to Ichigo's story. "How did you know he needed help?" Chief Suragame asked as he wrote the statement down. Ichigo waved his hand through the air. One of his friends got a text with his location. The chief nodded as he wrote that down. "When I got there, this maniac was cackling over the bodies of 2 kids and the brown guy with the feathers. So I stunned him. He tried to stab me, so I slapped him, then I insulted and winded him, then I slapped him again. Oh, and then he threw a bunch of knives at me, so I hit him with a binding spell." Chief Suragame spent a short time after Ichigo finished to get it all written down. Binding spell? Woof. Ichigo nodded and pointed 2 fingers at a smiling plush bunny Orihime had on the mantle. Sigh, Ichigo said, and the doll's arms snapped behind its back and it fell forward with a soft puff. It's a harmless way of binding someone. And why was this not the first thing you did? Woof. Ichigo shrugged. I wasn't really thinking, too pissed off that some guy was attacking my kid, Ichigo said honestly. Chief Tsuragame hummed and nodded. And after that? Woof. Created a reishi platform to get a bird's eye view of the city and get that other kid to his guardian. Got there, and got those people out of that building, Ichigo said with a shrug. Are you aware that the usage of quirks without a license on another person or in public spaces is considered unlawful? Woof, Chief Tsuragame asked. I was not, but I am now, Ichigo said. Chief Tsuragame nodded and scribbled something down. Considering the circumstances, there aren't a lot of options for you to avoid legal consequences. Woof, Chief Tsuragame said as he flipped over to a new page. However, we're willing to work with you considering the service you provided the city. But you'll need to get a provisional license at the next licensing exam at the very least. Preferably your pro license. Woof. Chief Tsuragame pulled out an official book that looked like it was used to write tickets. He scribbled something down in it and ripped off the top yellow page. Consider this your official notice to do so, Chief Tsuragame said as he got up to leave. Ichigo nodded while taking it. Will do. Also, don't leave the country anytime soon. We may need to ask you some more questions later on in the investigation. Yes sir, Ichigo said with a polite nod as he got up and ushered them out the door. It was nice seeing you again Kurosaki, Gran Torino said as he left. Likewise, Ichigo said and closed the door behind them. Who was that guy? Ichigo wondered aloud as he scratched his head. Orihime got home early afternoon. Her hair was frazzled and her clothes rumpled. Ichigo had called her last night and she caught the first flight to Japan from her conference in Paris. Her employer was less than pleased, but stayed quiet about it considering the circumstances. When she came through the door she flung herself into Ichigo's arms. There was a lot of kissing and tears. Kazui disappeared into his room, shut the door tight, and put on some loud music. He had no interest in anything his parents were doing that day. Why strawberry pajamas? Ichigo asked that night as they lay in bed. They're cute. Orihime said as she descended into uncontrolled giggles. I also thought you may notice they were uncool and wake up sooner. Ichigo snorted and kissed his wife. I love you. Chapter 4. Chapter text. The next day Ichigo didn't wake up. Orihime wept bitterly, and Kazui sat quietly on his bed staring at the picture they had taken together as a family with his phone the day prior with watery eyes. Midoriya called and Kazui wiped his cheeks before answering. Kurosaki-kun. Your dad was amazing the other day. I'm glad he finally woke up. I've never seen such a versatile quirk. Kazui bent over double as a sob ripped from his throat. Kurosaki-kun? Midoriya hesitated on the other end. He's be back in NAC Com-ma, Kazui said as he clutched at his chest. Fat tears rolled down his blotchy red cheeks and he put a hand over his mouth to hold back any sound. Oh no, Midoriya said from the other end, Kurosaki-kun. I'm so sorry. Kazui took a deep breath as he stared at his ceiling to collect himself. He took another deep breath. Just thought things would be different now, you know? His voice felt thick and foreign in his tight throat. Yeah, Midoriya said softly. The boys talked some more, and Kazui felt a bit better once the phone call ended. Karen and Yuzu came that afternoon, each disheartened. They took care of the chores for Orihime and Karen brought Kazui out for ice cream. Chad stopped by also, and tucked the clothes he had bought Ichigo when he heard the good news into the back corner of the closet with a long forlorn sigh. He looked back at Ichigo, sleeping still and unmoving in the bed, and walked over to him. Chad flicked Ichigo on the center point of his forehead and kneeled down. "You need to wake up again," Chad said to Ichigo's sleeping form, "they need you." Kazui got dressed and met Iida at the agency. Manuel told them both firmly to not wander off and they went back out on patrol. What should have been exciting and a great opportunity to learn and grow fell flat with his melancholy. Iida kept shooting him worried glances throughout the day, and by the end of their shift Manuel pulled Kazui aside with a worried frown. "Hey, is everything all right?" Manuel asked. Kazui grimaced. "Sorry, my dad's in a coma again, and I'm just—" Kazui couldn't think of the words. "It's just hard right now." Manuel put a comforting hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry to hear that. Let me know if you need to stop your internship." "There's no shame in having family stuff pop up. It happens to all of us," Manuel said seriously. Kazui gave him a lopsided grin. "Thanks," he said, "I'll keep that in mind." Kazui kept his internship. The house felt too empty for all that there were more people there than usual. Aunt Yuzu and Aunt Karen kept popping in with food. In the evenings after the cafe closed, Aunt Yuzu would stay to binge-watch old movies and eat an entire tub of ice cream with his mother. Ichigo woke up the day of the standard hero license exam, and blanched at his phone screen. The standard hero licensing exam was happening today, and if he missed it he would have to take the provisional license exam later on in the year with a bunch of kids. The house was empty and he scrounged through his closet in hopes of finding something there. There was. Ichigo grasped the handles of the plastic bag with teary-eyed relief. "Orihime, I love you so much," Ichigo said as he pulled out clothes that matched what he usually preferred to wear. A set of fashionable dark jeans, belt, shirt, and coat with a high collar that he kept open. Also some sleek combat boots. Which made him think that maybe the clothes were from Chad and not Orihime. He walked swiftly down the stairs and into the kitchen, popped an energy breakfast bar in his mouth and scribbled down a note on the pen and pad they kept in the kitchen. The wrapper of the breakfast bar crinkled as he tossed it in the trash. He grabbed the summons ticket thing the chief had given him from under a magnet on the fridge. Ichigo ran out the door and crashed into a shell-shocked Kazui. He gripped his son's shoulders to steady him, and the guy with the fish-themed costume and the kid with the mech suit seemed equally as surprised to see Ichigo flying through the door in a hurry. "Dad?" Kazui said. "Hey, I'm in a hurry," Ichigo said as he pulled the food out of his mouth and waved the ticket, "but I'll see you and your mother for dinner tonight, alright?" Kazui seemed stunned as Ichigo moved to jog towards the street, then grabbed his sleeve. "Take my phone," Kazui shouted as he shoved it into Ichigo's coat pocket. Ichigo pulled out his own and shook it. "Oh," Kazui said. "Wait, when did you get that?" Quote. "Tell you later," Ichigo said as he ran off. "See you tonight," he shouted back. Kazui nearly dropped his phone as it bounced between his hands in a mad juggle. Manuel placed his hand on Kazui's shoulder with a beaming grin. "Congratulations," he said confidently. Iida nodded vigorously behind Manuel. "I am happy for you," Iida said with a stiff thumbs up and a serious look. Kazui laughed at his friend and mentor. "Thanks," he said with a teary smile. Ichigo made it to the testing building by using the GPS on his phone and quite literally flying through the sky with his fastest shunpo. He still barely made it in time. Name? The examiner asked. Kurosaki Ichigo. They flipped through some paperwork and handed him a lanyard and some devices to place on his body. You're cutting it pretty close, the examiner commented. Yeah, Ichigo said as he rubbed the back of his head. I was in a coma, sorry. The examiner stared at him and then lit up with a brilliant smile. You're Coma-man. The examiner said loudly, and a group of men in tights a fair distance away quieted down to stare at them. I'm sorry? Ichigo tilted his head to the side in confusion. My daughter just loves you. Oh. Sorry, the exam will take place in 10 minutes. Please make your way to the examination area, the examiner pointed to where a man in green spandex with a yellow cape was sashaying his way through a large door. Thanks, Ichigo said as he followed the strange man, walking past the group of spandex-clad middle-aged men. There's a bunch of freaks here, Ichigo thought unkindly as he aggressively kept his face blank while walking past the group of men. Their heads turned to follow him in unison as he walked past. Stop staring. Single quote. He came underdressed, one of them muttered. He had a rubber duck insignia and wore an orange bodysuit with yellow boots and gloves. You're insulting my fashion sense? Ichigo thought incredulously as he walked through the large doors into an enormous room that wasn't unlike Hat and Clog's underground training room. Ichigo slapped his little devices over his vital points and pulled out his phone. He typed, Coma-man, into the search engine and a few thousand gifs of Ichigo in a black tank with pink strawberry print pajama pants showed up. One sparkled and went through a little dance routine with pink bunny slippers. The sequence ended with a pair of sunglasses slowly sliding down Ichigo's grinning winky face. Now that's just hateful, Ichigo muttered. Chapter 5. License Exam. Chapter Text. Coma-man. Ichigo hated that name already. The examiner from earlier ran up to him, panting when they finally reached him. I need you Huff to sign Huff the NDA Huff. A piece of paper was thrust into Ichigo's hands along with a pen. The examiner turned around for Ichigo to use their back as a writing surface, to Ichigo's exasperation. He filled out the form quickly. All done, Ichigo said as he handed the items back. Thank you, sir. The examiner ran away swiftly with great sweeping arm movements. Ichigo stared at him leave incredulously. All right everyone, a shaggy-haired man who resembled Hat and Clog's paper-pushing sleep-deprived cousin tapped the mic. Is this thing on? A high-pitched screech filled the air. Several examines covered their ears with a grumble. Ichigo poked a pinky in his ear and stood casually with his other hand hooked by the thumb in his jeans pocket. Great, as you know this is the Pro Hero License Exam, or the Standard Hero Licensing Exam. Whichever, they're the same thing. Essentially you're the guinea pigs for the provisional kids later on this year. So no spilling the beans, Hatless Suit said as he wumped his head down on the table next to the mic while waving a blank NDA around in the air. The guy looked 30 minutes away from being classified as the undead. The task is simple, capture 2 other participants and bring them to a cage illuminated in a far part of the area, police station. You each have 6 hit dots, place them on your vital points. The loud rustling sound of a few hundred people complying filled the area. You must hit one spot yourself for the takedown to count as yours. If the person you're taking down has more than 3 hit dots, they're dead and you're disqualified. If you have more than 3 hit dots yourself, then you're dead and you're disqualified, the man yawned. Don't bring dead people to the police, and don't get killed. Simple, easy to remember. I'm sure some of you idiots will forget, he said lazily as he shuffled some papers. Where was I? Oh right. The first 20 to succeed will move on to the next stage. That is if 20 of you even succeed. Don't start until the buzzer goes off and Oh, right, head to your designated areas. The color of your hid dots corresponds with your designated zone. People outside of your designated zone count for half credit, so you'll need 4 instead of 2. That's all. He finished by downing the entire cup of coffee some other exhausted person in a suit brought him. A screen lit up with color-coded outlined zones. Ichigo looked at the colored rim of his dots and Flash stepped to the purple zone. He was the first one in the artificial city, so he went to the highest point on a lightning rod to look down at the other examinees as they entered the zone. He had Rubber Duck Dude and a walking vending machine, which was equal parts exasperating and befuddling. 17 other people walked in, one with wavy rubber arms, and another with the head of a coyote. There was also a large armored porcupine person. Ichigo scratched his head. Had people in this world been so diverse while he was out and about earlier? He honestly hadn't been paying attention. The buzzer sounded and Ichigo shot off towards Rubber Duck Dude. Rubber Duck yelped when Ichigo seemed to materialize before him and tapped the dot over his spleen. The guy shot a spout of rubber ducks at him, which Ichigo dodged by twisting his torso a little to the right. They squeaked as they hit the wall of the building behind Ichigo. Dude, Ichigo looked at the happy yellow ducks on the ground. Why are you even here? Rubber Duck deflated, then perked right back up. Because I am a hero, he said in a little wheeze that sounded like a rubber duck squeaker came from his throat. Ichigo scratched his head and looked at the ducks again. He pointed 2 fingers at Rubber Duck Dude. Sigh, Ichigo said, and the guy was folded in half with his arms behind his back. Ichigo picked him up by the belt, carrying him like a piece of luggage, and shunpoed into the police station. They seemed surprised to see him. Ichigo left with a salute and a flash of bringer light. And someone is already in the station, Yokimiru said as he double-checked. That's what, 30 seconds? Seriously? Looks like. ... Examinee 15. Quote. Ichigo flashed in front of a woman with a spiked club for an arm and a bad attitude who was laughing while trying to brain someone. She had 4 illuminated dots. Ichigo got her with a sigh on his way past and waved at the thankful man in green zone as he shot off back towards his own. Ichigo landed back on his lightning rod and looked down below at the street. There was some ninja-looking guy zipping around dodging a bear, and the vending machine was squaring off against a man with a bulldozer scoop for a chest. It looked like a special episode of Bob the Builder. Kazooie used to love that show. There was a woman with pixie wings cowering around a corner from the porcupine man who was completely oblivious to her, trembling with a hand over her mouth and tears streaming down her face. She clearly had no business here. 2 of her dots had been hit. Ichigo flashed beside her, tapped the dot on her shoulder, and flashed her over to the police station. No, she whispered as she fell to her knees, I was so close. You really weren't, Ichigo said bluntly as he handed her over to the examiners dressed in police uniforms. They nodded to him as a buzzer overhead sounded. And our first examinee is through. With a record-beating 1 minute 15 seconds. Examinee number 15. Wow, that's ironic, Yokimiru muttered at the end as he scratched at his pale blonde hair. Hey, can you undo your quirk on this guy? One of the police asked as he pointed at Rubber Duck. Oh, yeah, Ichigo said as he waved his hand lazily towards the uncomfortable-looking man in yellow. Rubber Duck stood up with a relieved sigh and stretched once released. "Ah man," Rubber Duck said, "you really had me there." He gave Ichigo a grin and a thumbs up. "Not every day you can boast that you've defeated," he gave a dramatic pose, the Rubber Duke. Quote, Ichigo said with a blank face. One of the proctors got his attention and waved Ichigo over. "Right this way," he said, leading Ichigo to a room off to the side. "You'll need to wait here for the other examinees to finish." Ichigo nodded as the proctor left him there and leaned against the wall while pulling out his phone. He winced when he turned on the screen. Ichigo had put his phone on silence, and there was a number of missed calls and messages from Orihime. He hit dial on the contact and his call was answered on the second ring. "Hey, Haim," Ichigo said. "Ichigo." Orihime wailed and Ichigo winced while pulling the phone away from his ear. The sound of Orihime's panicked blabbering echoed in the empty room and he turned the volume down quickly with a blush coating his cheeks. "Yeah, I'm fine," Ichigo said softly. He crossed his free arm over his chest as he leaned against the wall. "No, I'm at the mandatory license exam." A pause. "I have a ticket from Hosu police chief." A longer pause. "That's not exactly an acceptable excuse to miss." A wince. "Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, next time I'll make sure to pick up the first time." Another wince. "Yes, you're absolutely right. There won't be a next time." A pause. "I'll make it up to you, I promise." Another pause and a panicked look. "No, don't cry. I'll make dinner, we can do barbecue and invite the girls over." A pause. "Or we can do movie night, that works too." "Yes, I'll make my special avocado dip." A proctor walked over to him awkwardly. Sir? You can't have a cell phone for this exam." Ichigo nodded and put his finger up in a one-moment motion. "Hey, Haim? I'm headed back into the exam so I have to let you go." A pause. "Not too long." Ichigo put his hand over the microphone on his cell. "About how long?" He whispered to the proctor. He waved his hand in a so-so gesture. "About 3 hours maybe?" Ichigo removed his hand from the microphone. "It'll only be a few more hours then I'll be home, okay?" A pause. "Pinky promise." A pause. "I love you too. See you tonight." Ichigo hung up the phone and locked it before handing it to the outstretched hand of the proctor. "I'll keep your valuables safe, sir," he said with a salute. Thanks." "Oh. Hey, if it says, emergency, flag me down," Ichigo said with a hand raised towards the man as he left. The man gave him the most serious thumbs up Ichigo had ever received in his life and jogged off back to the viewing stands. Ichigo turned his head to the viewing screens to see some epic battles going on in the other zones. "How come I got all the incompetent people in my zone?" Ichigo wondered aloud with a scowl at the screen. Yokamiru materialized beside him. "We put all the people with stupid names in the same zone," the blonde-haired man said as he slouched beside Ichigo with a fresh cup of coffee in hand. "I'm Yokamiru by the way," he said as he held out a hand to shake Ichigo's. "My name's not stupid," Ichigo said as he shook the man's hand. "Kurosaki, nice to meet you." "Your hero name is Coma-man," Yokamiru pointed out, taking an obnoxiously loud sip of his coffee, "or at least it's going to be." Ichigo huffed an annoyed sigh. "No it's not," Ichigo scratched his hair with agitation, "and why would it be?" Quote, "Oh, you don't know?" Yokamiru said casually and a slow grin lit up his face. "Some people get to choose their hero names, but others," he gestured to Ichigo with a wide sweeping gesture, "they get their name chosen by the media after doing something that turns them into a viral hit sensation." Guess which one you are. Ichigo crossed his arms and grumbled. Yokomiru laughed, and then his face turned serious. You took out the hero killer, Yokomiru sighed, so the commission wants me to make contact with you before you start your career. Who? Ichigo said with a blank face. Yokomiru stared at him. Quote dot. 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 The hero killer, Ichigo's face did not change as he stared silently at Yokomiru. Stain? Quote. Never heard of him, Ichigo said. The guy whose ass you kicked in an alley, Yokomiru said blandly. Ichigo snapped his fingers. Oh. The evil stabby scarf guy, right? Ichigo asked. Quote dot. 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 You're something else, you know that? Yokomiru said. Ichigo shrugged. Unfortunately, this part is over. I hope you enjoyed it. My apologies for all those quotes. Please have a good morning, afternoon, evening or night. See you next time, faves.